A very good morning, class 12th. Welcome to the channel by Seema Makhijani, trying to make chemistry easier for you. Today's class is on the P block of elements. And under the category of P block, we've already done group 15 with its reasoning questions and the basics. You can have a look at that particular video. There are two parts to it, part 1 and part 2. Moving ahead to the group 16, as I had promised that I would be doing the P block throughout. Coming to group 16, we'll again have two videos on this particular topic. I hope you enjoy and understand the concept. Group 16 members are also known as the chalcogens. The word chalcogen means ore forming. Generally, the ores are either oxides or sulfides. Majorly, we find that the ores that are dug up from the earth crust are either oxides or sulfides, and that is probably the reason that this particular group is known as the group of chalcogens. Coming to the members of this group, you have oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium and polonium. Now this polonium we will not study chemically because it is radioactive, which means it has an unstable nucleus. Which means कि nucleus टूट जाता है. अगर nucleus टूट जाएगा, then the identity of the element is lost because the number of protons will change. All elements in chemistry are having an identity on the basis of their atomic number, that is the number of protons. Now if the number of protons change, then in that case the identity changes. So we will not be talking much about polonium's chemical properties. Coming to the electronic configuration for these members. The first member is oxygen, having 8 protons and electrons. So 1s2, 2s2, 2p4. Coming to sulfur with 16 atomic number, 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p4. Now what's common in both of them? Why are they grouped together? The reason is they have got 4 electrons in the outermost p subshell. That is the reason they belong to the P block of elements. Now for the others, as you would write the electronic configuration, you would end up in 4s2, 3d10, 4p4 in case of selenium. For tellurium, the same configuration would go up to the fifth shell, 5s2, 4d10, 5p4, and for polonium, this would go up to 6s2. Now you would have 4f14, then you would have 5d10, and then you would have the 6p4. So if you are talking about the general configuration, the general electronic configuration for group number 16 would be known as ns2 np4, which means the outer shell where n is the valence shell or the outermost shell would have s electrons as 2 and p electrons will be 4. Also, since they are belonging to the P block, the group number for P block elements is given by 12 plus the np electrons. So as you can see, therefore the group number would be 12 plus these 4 are the np electrons. Hence the group number is 16 for the oxygen family. Fine. Moving on to the oxidation states. When we talk about the oxidation states, if I talk about the general configuration, then in that case, you know that the outermost S subshell has got 2 electrons, while the outermost P subshell has got 4 electrons. Fine. Now, the oxidation state means the combining capacity. How is it going to combine? The first option is it can accept 2 electrons to complete the octet. If this is the case, then the oxidation state is going to be -2, where the element has to accept electrons. You very well know on moving down the group, the atomic radii increases. Since the atomic radii increases, electron gain becomes difficult. Therefore, this accepting 2 electrons, the -2 oxidation state is less predominant on moving down the group from oxygen to polonium. So when we talk about -2, it is more or less a property of the first two members where they do have an electron tendency to gain electrons, the rest of them do not. Moving to the other oxidation states of this particular group. If I talk about oxygen, then it is your 2s2 and 2p4 is the configuration, which means oxygen has a tendency to gain 2 electrons. It is the second most electronegative atom with the electronegativity of 3.5 just after fluorine. So if it gains 2 electrons, it becomes a -2. But there is a possibility, for example, in this case, if you have a compound of the type Na2O, that is with the metals. With the metals, oxygen will have an oxidation state of -2, where metal would give the electron, oxygen would gain the electron. But in case there is a compound of the type OF2, what would you name this compound? The name of this compound is oxygen difluoride. Why do we call it fluoride and not an oxide? The reason is the term cation, the anion is formed from the one which is more electronegative. Out of oxygen and fluorine, it is oxygen which is more electronegative. So the name is oxygen difluoride and not an oxide. In this particular compound, fluorine is more electronegative. It has a tendency to pull electrons, 2 fluorines. So oxygen gets a +2. This is the only compound, or the compounds in which oxygen combines with fluorine, then only oxygen can have a positive oxidation state. Would only be possible if oxygen combines with fluorine. Now, this also means that when we talk about the other members, for the other members, the outermost shell has Ns, it has Np, and also has available vacant d orbitals which can be used for bonding. So, in this case, the bonds can be more than 4. Whereas when we talk about oxygen, oxygen only has an S and a P subshell. So for oxygen, when we talk about it, it is only has got S and P subshell, which means 1 orbital and 3 orbitals. So a total of 4 orbitals. Hence it can only form 4 covalent bonds. Whereas if you talk about the other members of the type sulfur, selenium or tellurium, I am not talking about polonium, they would have a d subshell vacant available to them, which means this electron can move here. If this happens, then this electron moves from here and moves at this point. Now there are 4 half-filled orbitals which can form 4 covalent bonds. Plus you would also have one lone pair. Now if this also gets unpaired and moves here, you would have 6 half-filled orbitals, so it can form 6 covalent bonds. Therefore, compounds of sulfur are of the type SF2. You have something called as SF4 also. You have something called as SF6 also, which clearly shows sulfur can show an oxidation state of +2, +4 as well as +6 owing to the presence of the d subshell in its valence shell, which can be used for bond formation. Hence the oxidation state can go beyond and it can form more bonds than 4. This is applicable to all members other than oxygen. Fine. So after you've shifted one electron from the p subshell to the d subshell, you will now have 4 bonds forming and a lone pair. But if you want 6 bonds to be formed, you want this electron to be unpaired and taken here. But this is not applicable to polonium, which is the last member, and this s electrons resist in bond formation, which is due to inert pair effect. Now this inert pair effect is a special property of the last member. Hence your polonium would never form compounds like PF6. In fact, this transformation is also not applicable to tellurium. Tellurium also does not allow these 2 electrons to participate in bonding. they resist in participation in bonding. Whenever we come to the last member, the s electrons do not participate in bonding because the energy required to unpair them is much higher than which is compensated by the formation of extra 2 bonds. And why is that? Because towards the last members, when you approach these members in the configuration, you would find D and the F subshells. And this D and the F subshells having a poor shielding effect, they cause effective nuclear charge to increase, and hence the s electrons which are closer to the nucleus are held tightly, hence they resist in bond formation. So they do not form bonds. Because of this important fact, inert pair effect, you have nothing called as TeF6 or POF6 ever existing. So your +6 oxidation state can only be applicable to sulfur, selenium and tellurium, sulfur and selenium. Oxygen cannot go beyond your 4 bonds to be formed. Sulfur and selenium can go up to 6 bonding. Tellurium can only maximum go up to 4 bonds can be made. Talking about the first member in detail. The first member always shows anomalous properties. If you do not have any idea about these anomalous properties of the first member, please watch my video on anomalous properties. It is there in the channel for you to have a look at it. This particular topic we had done in Unit 3, Periodic Classification of Elements. So, when we talk about the first member, there are certain important properties which are applicable to it. The first important property is its small size. Because of the small size, the ionization energy therefore is very high. The electron gain enthalpy is also more negative. Also, it has got only S and P subshell. There is nothing called as 2D in the first member, so it can have a maximum covalency of 4. It cannot form bonds beyond 4, so something called as OF6 would never exist. Also, moving beyond this has a tendency to form p-pi multiple bonds, is the reason that you have O2 existing. O2 is a discrete molecule with a double bond like this. This is small. Therefore, the intermolecular force of attraction is weak, and that causes it to be a gas. So, your oxygen is a gas owing to its small size, which leads to the weaker intermolecular force of attraction. We are talking about the London force or the van der Waals force, which depend on the size. So, because oxygen has weak London force and van der Waals forces, therefore, the molecules of oxygen are far away from each other, hence they exist in the gaseous state. Fine, that is another important property. Beyond this, so oxygen does not prefer to form a single bond and form long chains, which means oxygen does not show catenation. Like the other members, it would not show any catenation. The reason is O single bond O is very weak. Why is that? Because the oxygens have a small size, this electron pair present here, but apart from this, oxygen in the outermost shell, how many electrons does it have? 6. 1 you have used, so you are still left with 5 electrons here, and these electron pairs repel each other. Due to the small size of oxygen, these lone pair of electrons are pretty close to each other, hence they do repel each other, causing this particular bond to become very weak. So, your O single bond O is not formed, hence it will never form chains and rings to show any catenation. Let's talk about the properties as we move down the group. As I go from oxygen to sulfur to selenium to tellurium to polonium, which of course is radioactive, down the group, the size of the atoms increases. Therefore, the valence electron is away from the nucleus. Therefore, it can be easily lost. Hence, if the electrons is easily lost, your metallic character will always increase as you move down the group. As you can see, the first two members show a non-metallic character. Selenium and tellurium are metalloids, whereas polonium shows metallic character, which means down the group, your ionization energy also decreases. That is, the energy required to pull out the most loosely bound electron also decreases. So, the electron loss becomes easier on moving down the group. Coming to the physical properties, your melting point and boiling point are directly proportional to intermolecular force of attraction. For these elements, the intermolecular force of attraction is the London force or the van der Waals force or the dispersion force, which is dependent on size or the mass. As we go down the group, always the size would increase and the mass would also increase. Hence, since the mass is increasing and the size is increasing, the intermolecular force of attraction will increase. Hence, on moving down the group, your melting point would increase, boiling point would also increase. That's a property universally true for all the groups in the P block. Fine? Coming to a special property which is known as your electron gain enthalpy. This value is generally a negative value and it is the loss of energy when a neutral isolated gaseous atom accepts an electron. I am doing this property specially for oxygen and sulfur because there is an exception residing here. Now, if I have an electron from outside and it has to enter these atoms, then in case of oxygen, the electron has to enter a 2p which has got 4 electrons already, whereas in case of sulfur, the electron has to enter a 3p which also has 4 electrons already. Now, normally we expect that oxygen being smaller in size should gain the electron much more easily. Hence, the electron gain enthalpy here should be more negative. But the actual values are a little surprising. The actual values of electron gain enthalpies for oxygen is minus 141 kilojoules per mole, while that of oxygen is minus 200 kilojoules per mole. And that is the surprise factor, which means electron gain is easier in case of sulfur as compared to oxygen. The question is why so? And the reason is this incoming electron faces repulsion from 4 electrons of 2p and 3p, which very well you know 3p has a larger size. Because of the larger size, the electron repulsion would be less. So your electron repulsion is less in case of 3p. Therefore, when you have the electron gain in 3p becomes slightly more easier than the electron gain in 2p, and this is an exception which was also done in class 11th unit 3 periodic classification of elements. If you have any doubts regarding the topic of electron gain enthalpy, please refer to the video of class 11th periodic classification of elements. Major topics of this particular unit are done in that playlist. Fine. Moving ahead. When we talk about the basic difference between sulfur and oxygen, we know this is a gas while this is a solid, and that is a question mark. Why so? And the reason for it is oxygen exists as O2. It has a small size, so it has a effective tendency for p-pi multiple bond. Therefore, it can easily form a pi bond, and it exists as small discrete means individual molecules. Whereas the same thing is not applicable to sulfur. When we talk about sulfur, sulfur does not form the pi bond. The reason is the large size of sulfur does not allow the p-pi overlap to happen. Therefore, sulfur tends to form single bonds. And in case of oxygen, Single bonds are not stable as already explained to you due to the lone pair repulsion, which is higher in case of oxygen owing to its small size. Of course, when sulfur forms a single bond, it also does have lone pairs, but the repulsion is less because sulfur is large in size. These lone pairs are far away from each other, so they do not repel each other to the extent as observed in case of the two oxygen atoms which are singly bonded. Therefore, S2 does not exist at room temperature, which means sulfur at room temperature, your sulfur exists as an S8 molecule, which is like this. An S8 crown like structure where each sulfur has got two single bonds and it does not have any double bond in it because sulfur does not have the tendency of multiple bond formation. Therefore, the molecular mass of this would be 256 in comparison to the molecular mass of oxygen, which is 32. Since the size is large, molecular mass is large, the intermolecular force of attraction is much higher than that of oxygen, which causes the physical state to be solid in case of sulfur, whereas oxygen is a gas. Also, when we talk about the melting point and the boiling point, which are dependent on intermolecular force of attraction, they are much higher for sulfur than that of oxygen. Now we would be moving on to the reasoning questions of P block of elements. That is group number 16. I would try to cover the possible reasoning questions. Let's begin with the reasoning questions of this particular unit. I will not be doing any questions which are related to the chemical equations because that is the learning part and I don't have much of a role to play in it. My interest in this particular video is to build concepts and we would only be building concepts via the reasoning questions. The first reasoning question, justify the trend in the melting and the boiling point of group 16 members. Have a look at the data given. Oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium. The melting point goes from 54 to 393, a huge rise. Then 490, 725. Similarly, the boiling point from oxygen to sulfur, you can see, is a huge rise of 600 units. Then there is around 200. Then there is around 300. So the major rise which we observe is in case of oxygen and sulfur when we talk about the melting point and the boiling point. Now the reasoning, down the group, the melting point and boiling point is directly proportional to intermolecular force of attraction, which is your London force, which is dependent on the size. So down the group, size increases, melting point and boiling point should increase, which is acceptable. But the melting point and the boiling point in case of sulfur is much higher than that of oxygen, and that is the question mark. And the reason resides in the physical state of these two elements. Sulfur is an S8, that is, it is octaatomic, while oxygen is diatomic. Is the main reason why the physical state is different. This is an octaatomic atom, a large atom with huge molecular force of attraction, which causes the strong molecular force of attraction, which causes the melting point and the boiling point to be high. This also depends on the atomicity, that is the number of atoms joined together to form the bond. Fine. Moving on to the next question. Electron gain enthalpy of sulfur is more negative than that of oxygen. We had just done this. I would still again help you out. 1s2, 2s2, 2p4 is where the electron has to enter. Sulfur, 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p4 is where the electron has to enter. The values actually are surprising when we talk about them. This value is minus 141, while this value is minus 200 kilojoules per mole, shows that electron gain is much faster here than here, and the reason is this incoming electron faces less repulsion from 4 electrons of 3p than 2p because of large size of 3p, which has only 4 electrons, so the incoming electron does not face much of repulsion. Coming to the next question, SO2 can act as a reducing agent. Reducing agent means has to reduce others and itself has to undergo oxidation, which means in SO2, if your SO2 could change to SO3, then your answer is done because it will undergo oxidation. And we very well know sulfur in SO2 has a +4 oxidation state and sulfur in SO3 has a +6 oxidation state, and sulfur can go to a +6 oxidation state because of the presence of d orbitals, and so your SO2 can change to SO3, that is sulfur can go from +4 to +6, that is an increase in oxidation state, that is it can undergo oxidation, therefore it can act as a reducing agent easily. Next question, give reason. TeO2 cannot act as a reducing agent. If I apply the same logic as done above, what I am trying to say is your TeO2 cannot go to TeO3. If you are able to justify it, that is done. In this particular compound of TeO3, tellurium has a +6 oxidation state, and we very well know tellurium resists +6 oxidation state due to inert pair effect. If we talk about the electronic configuration of tellurium as done in the initial part of the class, tellurium has the electronic configuration of the order 5s2, 4d10, 5p4. It is due to the presence of these 10 electrons of the d which cause the effective nuclear charge to increase. Therefore, the s electrons are tightly held. S electrons do not participate in bonding. Is the concept which is applicable to the last members of each and every group. So your tellurium will never go to +6 oxidation state. So if TeO4 cannot go from +4 to +6, which means it cannot undergo oxidation, so it can never act as a reducing agent. Coming to the next question. The next question says SF4 is a gas, SeF4 is a liquid, TeF4 is a solid, which means we are only talking about the physical state of these compounds, which is dependent on intermolecular force of attraction, which is directly proportional to size or the mass. And you can clearly see as I go from sulfur to selenium to tellurium, the size is increasing, atomic mass is also increasing, therefore intermolecular force of attraction would increase, hence the molecules get associated or move closer, hence the physical state goes from gas to liquid to solid as you move down the group. Fine. With this, I will conclude my first part of group 16. I would be coming up with my next video, which will only be exclusively for the reasoning questions of group 16. Please keep watching. Please keep sharing. Love you all. Bless you all. Do well in life.